It's really a moment of delight for me to be here for two reasons. First of all, to be in such wonderful museum, the largest museum of Islamic arts all over the world, which is really a testimony of the contributions of Islam and Muslims to world civilization. Islam, which is unfortunately is linked now wrongly to terrorism, is a great religion and a great civilization and contributed heavily to what we are witnessing now of human progress and human development. So again, it's a great pleasure to be in this prestigious place. And also we have a very, very important Museum of Islamic Arts in the heart of Cairo. And unfortunately, it was a victim of a terrorist attack 3 years ago. But thank God we managed to reopen it recently, and it's now open for public in order to show again the treasures of Islam and Muslims during the Mid-Ages. The second reason that I'm delighted to be here, the invitation by the Deutsche Arabische Gesellschaft, which is serving as a real bridge to connect the Arab world with Germany. Over the last more than 50 years, this important association played a very important role in order to bring the Arab world and Germany closer and closer. So we are delighted, we are very thankful to you, Mr. Bock, to Ambassador Erbil for your wonderful work in order to bring two different civilizations, two different cultures, two different worlds, together, closer and closer for the mutual benefits and for our mutual values. So I will try to be as short as possible, as brief as possible. I don't want to waste your time. I have a very long written speech, but I prefer just to say few remarks from heart to heart, about what's happening in my country, in Egypt, as the largest Arab country, the largest country in the Arab world and in the Middle East, and also some remarks on what's happening in our region, a very turbulent region called the Middle East, which is unfortunately now witnessing a great deal of turbulences and the source of terrorism and illegal migration, what Egypt is trying to do to restore stability to this turbulent region. And finally, maybe a few words on Egypt-Germany and Arab-German relationship and what we are asking for from Germany. Let me start with what's happening in my own country. I believe that most of you are aware of the revolutionary developments took place in Egypt over the last 6 years. This is something unprecedented in our ancient, modern, and contemporary history. Egypt never witnessed such kind of drastic changes in just 3 years. The first wave of revolution, 2011, and the second, the corrective wave in the 2013. We never, over the very long history of Egypt, over more than 600 or 700 years of history, we have witnessed maybe 5 or 6 revolutions, and 2 revolutions in just 3 years. So Egypt now is settling down. Egypt is back to normal, and we are now trying to move in 3 parallel tracks: economic track, security track, and political and democratic track. On the first track, which is the economy, I believe that this is the most challenging track for the future of Egypt. Just to give you some statistics, you know, more than 50% of our population are 30 years old or under. So this could be a huge challenge or a great opportunity for the future of Egypt. If we manage to find jobs to those young people, I believe that the reshaping of the future of Egypt will be in a very, very positive way. We have to create at least 1 million jobs every year. We have to grow by at least 7 to 8% every year in order to add 1 million jobs to our labor market. Those are great challenges for the Egyptian government. We cannot do it alone. We have to do it in cooperation with our partners. One of those prominent partners is Germany, of course. We cannot create jobs without increasing FDI, foreign direct investment. Without foreign direct investment, we cannot add 1 million jobs every year. The good news that we are growing now by almost 4.9%, which is good relatively, and we have to do more in order to create more jobs. Foreign direct investment in the last year, we managed to increase it by almost more than 45%, which is another good news. The rate of unemployment is being decreased to 12%, which is still a high rate. But anyway, we are growing now, and besides foreign direct investment, tourism is back almost to normal. Just Germany, you know, in this year till the end of August, we managed to increase tourism from Germany by 80%, 80%, comparing with the last first 8 months of last year, 2016. So safely, we are going to exceed 1 million, more than 1.1 or 1.2, hopefully, German tourists by the end of December this year, which is another positive development. So the government is trying to do its best in order to create more conducive environment. We enacted a new investment law, which is important to give more incentives, more guarantees to foreign investors. Nobody's coming without, you know, having guarantees and having more incentives. In November 2016, the government took very, very bold and decisive economic decisions by floating the Egyptian pound. And despite the burden on the Egyptian people, it was an inevitable decision by the government. You know, inflation now is increasing by more than 35%, which is putting huge burden on the ordinary people in Egypt. But the people are, you know, understanding those harsh decisions because we have no other option. We've been waiting over the last 50 years, literally, to take those decisions without having a very bold and courageous leader. And it was impossible to take those decisions on the 3rd of November. Despite the popularity of the president, of course, everybody was afraid in the government that if we took those decisions, the following day, people will go to the streets again and again for a third wave of revolution. But the people trusted the president, and they are patient, hopefully, for having the dividends of the economic reform. We hope that will start to have its impact as of next year. with the growing exploration of natural gas. And this is another very positive development. We found a great deal of reserve of natural gas in the Mediterranean. The largest gas field called Zohr was discovered by Eni of Italy. And this huge gas field will start its production end of December. We have reserve of 30 trillion cubic meters, which is considered the largest ever discovered natural gas field in the Mediterranean and in the world. So this is a very good news for our economy, and that could serve also as a source of energy and natural gas for Europe and for Germany. On the democratic and human rights and political track, this is a very difficult track, and we cannot ignore it. The government cannot ignore it, because the first and the second wave of revolutions were all about promoting democracy and human rights. I am fully aware of the recent reports by different NGOs about the state of play of human rights records in Egypt. But let me be very, very frank with you. We are not perfect, and nobody's perfect. We are striving to build our democracy. It's not going to be easy. It will take long time. It's not going to happen over day and night. It will take time. You have to change the mindset of the people. You have to change the culture. You have to create conducive environment. Without finding decent life and jobs for people, nobody will care about democracy. So we have to go parallel. We cannot ignore democracy just till we improve our standard of living or create jobs for young people. This is nonsense. It proved a failure during Mubarak regime, because they put on hold the whole issue of democracy on the shelf till we managed to improve our economy and improve the standard of living. It didn't work. People went to the streets to ask for freedom and for more democracy. But anyway, we are trying to do our best, and the major question in Egypt now, how to strike a balance between promoting democracy and fighting terrorism. And that led me to the third track, which is security. I'm sure you are all following up what's happening in the whole Middle East and in Egypt. By far, we managed to bring back stability in Egypt, and Egypt is rightly the anchor of stability in a very turbulent and unstable region called the Middle East. We are fighting terrorism in Egypt. We are surrounded by very hot borders, including a failed state called Libya in our western border. So we are sharing border with Libya with length of 1,200 kilometers. And the same for the coastal in the Mediterranean, and the same applied for Sudan with Gaza. So it's not easy. It's not easy at all to secure our borders, but we managed to bring stability to Egypt, and we are containing now terrorist activities in a very tiny area in the far northeast part of Sinai, which is very close to Gaza. And I believe that we achieved a great deal of positive achievements. And this does not serve the interest of Egypt only, but does serve the interest of Europe, including Germany and world community, because we are not fighting to defend ourselves alone. We are fighting terrorism also to defend Europe and the whole world, because for God forbids, if this country fell down, then the flood of terrorists and organized crimes will come to Europe. Again, we are trying to do our best in a very turbulent region. With Egypt back to normal, Egypt start to assume its normal role in the Middle East. by playing a leading role in, first of all, fighting terrorism, secondly, fighting illegal migration, through pushing for political settlements in the spreading out of crisis in the Middle East, namely the Palestinian problem, the Libyan crisis, the Syrian crisis, and also the problems in Yemen and in Iraq. We are saving no efforts in order to bring stability to the region, because this is the number one priority for our national security. We cannot having a stable Egypt without having stable Middle East and the Arab world. The key element, the key policy in doing that is how to restore the state, the nation state, the modern state in the Middle East. Because unfortunately, in Libya, in Syria, the nation state is not anymore exist, with the policies of disintegration and fragmentation. So the point of departure here, how to bring back the nation state and the modern state back to normal in the Middle East. As I mentioned, we are fighting terrorism, and unfortunately, we cannot be decisive. We cannot eliminate terrorism in the Middle East without, first of all, applying a more holistic, a more comprehensive policy and strategy, starting from fighting ideas, fighting the ideology, and this is very important. We have Al-Azhar, which is the most prominent Sunni institution in the Islamic world. It's playing very important role in that. We have to fight finance and the funding of terrorist organizations, and it's quite normal, it's quite obvious that we have some countries, unfortunately, in the region who are involving in funding terrorist organizations. So the world community should be more decisive in stopping all kinds of finance to terrorist organizations. Thirdly, we have to fight terrorism by, of course, stopping the flow of weapons and by security means. And we have countries also who are supporting terrorist organizations in our region through not only cash, but also through weapons. To cut the story short, we are also leading efforts in the Middle East to stop illegal migration coming from the Middle East, from North Africa, from Sub-Saharan Africa. Just to give you ideas on the magnitude of the problems, in Egypt alone, we have 5 million refugees living in Egypt only. And we are the only country in the region which is hosting the refugees not in a refugee camps, but they are living like Egyptians, spreading in the whole country. This is a huge burden on our economy, especially they have access also to jobs and competing with Egyptians, but we have no other option but to host our brothers coming from the Arab world, from Africa, but this is a decisive issue. We concluded an agreement with Germany just a few days ago on cooperation in fighting illegal migration. This is the first ever agreement to be reached between Germany and Arab country, and that's a very good news in order to stop the flow of illegal migration. But again, we have to fight illegal migration from its roots, and without finding political settlements to our crisis in the region, namely the Libyan crisis, it's not going to be stopped. So Egypt is playing a very important role in order to find a political settlement in Libya. We are not supporting a specific person. Unfortunately, it's been portrayed in the media that Egypt is only backing General Haftar. This is not true. We are supporting national institutions only. We don't support persons. We are supporting institutions. We have to bring Libya back to normal as a one country. We are against disintegration of Libya. This does not serve the interest of Europe or Germany or Egypt. So this is not an option. We have a political agreement called Sukhayrat Agreement. This is the only way out. We have to implement it with minor change. And recently, our chief of our armed forces hosted, the military leadership from Libya, from east, from west, from south, in order to bring them together and to have a unified Libyan army. With regard to Palestine, this is the core of the conflict in the region. We cannot have enduring stability and peace in the Middle East without having a just and comprehensive and lasting settlement to the Palestinian problem. And I'm sure you are aware of the recent development, the recent efforts exerted by Egypt, by the Egyptian president, first of all, to achieve Palestinian reconciliation between Hamas and Fatah. And we have some elements to be, or some reasons to be optimistic. We hope that that will be concluded in the right way. And we hope that the National Unity Government will go back to Gaza and start its mandate and its work. Gaza and the West Bank, those are integral part of the Palestinian state with its capital as East Jerusalem. There is no other option but to apply the two-state solution. The president met with Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel and with President Abu Mazen in order to try to bridge the gap and to restore peace negotiations. The same applied for Syria. We've been quite active in order to reach the agreements of de-escalation in Homs and the eastern Ghouta. And again, there is no military solution to the crisis in Syria, but only political solution which keep the unity of Syria. Disintegration of Syria is not an option for us. And, the future of Bashar al-Assad and the regime there is on the hand of the Syrian people. They have to decide by their own. But again, we have to push for the political settlement and to push the opposition and the regime to sit together in order to reach a political settlement. I'm sorry to speak for a long time, but let me conclude by saying a few words about what we need from Germany. Germany is a leading country, or the leading country within the European Union. Germany has a very, very excellent reputation in the Arab world, including in my country, in Egypt, because it has clean hands in the Middle East. It never spoiled with any bad history or colonial burden. It's a country which has a great deal of respect among all Arab countries and Arab nations. And of course, the very bold decision by Chancellor Merkel in September 2015 to open border for refugees coming from Syria, from Afghanistan, that was extremely, extremely appreciated by the Arab world as a testimony of the civilian face of Germany. But we have a partnership, Egypt and Germany. We are partners. We need you and you need us. We need Germany for transfer of technology, for a model of technical education, and for tourism, for the flow of foreign direct investment. And you need us not only as a market for German goods, but also for areas very attractive for investment, and also as a pillar of stability and as an anchor of stability in the region. So it's a partnership between Germany and Egypt, between Germany and the Arab world. You need us and we need you. So we have to continue this partnership, and with the constructive work and the activities by the Deutsche Arabische Gesellschaft, I think we can bring the two entities, the Arab world and Germany, closer and closer for the mutual benefits of Germany and for the benefits of the Arab world. And again, thank you so much, Mr. Box, and thank you so much, Ambassador Erbil, for giving me such wonderful opportunity to address such distinguished guests. Wish you all the best, and I ask you, I urge you to continue work hand on hands for a better future for the Arab world and for Germany. Thank you so much. Thank you.